The dead world spun slowly in the darkness of space. Once, it had been called Earth. Now it was just another lifeless rock orbiting a dying star. The Zephyrian archaeological ship descended through the thin atmosphere, its sensors scanning the empty landscape below. Senior archaeologist Veltar Nukes pressed his 4 hands against the viewing port. His blue skin shimmered with excitement. 500,000 years, he whispered to his assistant. Can you imagine what secrets this world holds? The humans had been extinct for 500,000 years. Everyone in the galaxy knew the story. They had been a peaceful species that shared their knowledge freely with others. Then they had simply vanished, leaving behind empty worlds and grateful alien civilizations. The ship landed near what had once been a great human city. The buildings were gone now, turned to dust by time and weather. But underground, the scanners had found something interesting. Metal structures that had somehow survived the ages. Veltar led his team down into the buried ruins. Their lights cut through the darkness as they walked through metal corridors. The walls were covered with symbols that their computers slowly translated. These were not the simple writings they expected from a peaceful people. Commander Jake Morrison, personal log, solar date 2487.3. The computer read aloud as they found. The first data core. Project Eternal Vigil proceeds as planned. The other species think we are being too careful. They do not understand. We are not preparing for the enemies we know. We are preparing for the enemies we have not yet met. Veltar felt a chill run through his body. This did not sound like the humans from the history books. Those humans had been traders and teachers. They had given technology to younger species and asked for nothing in return. But this Jake Morrison sounded like a military leader planning for war. They moved deeper into the ruins. More data cores revealed more logs. A scientist named Dr. Lisa Carter had written about something she called activation nodes. According to her notes, every human settlement had these special structures. Other species had thought they were temples or monuments, but Carter's research showed they were something else entirely. Each node is connected to a network that spans the entire galaxy, Carter had written. When the time comes, we will be ready. The galaxy thinks we build monuments to our past. In truth, we build weapons for our future. Veltar stopped walking. His team gathered around him, their faces pale in the artificial light. This cannot be right, one of them said. The humans were peaceful. They helped everyone. But the evidence was all around them. The deeper they went, the more military the structures became. They found weapons storage areas that could have armed entire fleets. They found manufacturing plants that could build warships. They found training facilities where humans had practiced fighting against every known alien species. The most disturbing discovery came when they reached the deepest level. Here, they found the personal quarters of the base commander. On his desk was a datapad containing files marked with the highest security levels. When they cracked the encryption, they found records that made their blood run cold. The Galactic Council believes we are their friends, read one file from a General Alex Thompson. They are correct. We are their friends. But friendship sometimes requires sacrifice. We have seen what comes from beyond the dark. We know what threatens this galaxy. And we know that when it arrives, someone must be ready to stand against it. The files contain detailed analyses of every alien species in the galaxy. But these were not cultural studies. They were tactical assessments. How fast could each species mobilize for war? What were their strengths and weaknesses? How could they best be protected when the time came? Veltar realized that humanity had been studying every other species not to conquer them, but to defend them. The humans had been planning for a war that no one else knew was coming. More files revealed the true scope of human preparation. While other species had built cities and monuments, humans had built bunkers and weapon factories. While others had focused on art and culture, humans had focused on survival and defense, not for themselves alone, but for everyone. "We carry the burden of knowledge," wrote Dr. Lisa Carter in her final log entry. "We have seen the enemy that comes from the dark spaces between galaxies. We know that one day it will return. And when it does, every living thing in this galaxy will need protection. The other species call us paranoid. They say we prepare for wars that will never come. If only they knew how wrong they are." The archaeological team worked for days, uncovering more and more evidence of humanity's secret preparations. They found star charts marking hidden facilities throughout the galaxy. They found supply caches that could support armies for years. They found communication networks that connected every world where humans had ever lived. Most shocking of all, they found evidence that humans had not really gone extinct. The files spoke of something called the Great Sleep. Millions of humans had entered special hibernation pods, waiting for a signal that would wake them when they were needed. Veltar stood in the command center of the ancient base, surrounded by banks of dormant computers and silent communication arrays. Everything was connected. Everything was ready. The humans had spent centuries preparing for something, and then they had simply waited. "Sir," called one of his assistants from across the room, "you need to see this." Veltar walked over to where the young archaeologist stood before a massive display screen. Ancient symbols scrolled across its surface, and their translation computer was working frantically to decode them. "It appears to be some kind of automated message," the assistant explained. "It keeps repeating the same thing over and over." The computer finished its translation, and words appeared on the screen in perfect Zephyrian script. "When the dark ships return, the sleepers will wake. When the ancient enemy comes home, humanity will rise. The galaxy will not fall. We have prepared. We are ready. We are coming." Veltar felt his legs grow weak. The message was not just a recording from the past. The timestamp showed it was being transmitted right now, in real time. Somewhere out there, human facilities were still active, still waiting, still preparing. He looked around at his team, seeing his own fear reflected in their faces. They had come to Earth expecting to find the ruins of a peaceful civilization. Instead, they had found evidence of the most elaborate military preparation in galactic history. And if the files were correct, the enemy that had driven humanity to such extremes was still out there, still coming. And when it arrived, the galaxy would discover that humanity's greatest gift had not been their technology or their culture. It had been their willingness to sacrifice everything to protect those who could not protect themselves. Dr. Kethra Voss had studied alien biology for most of her life, but nothing had prepared her for what she found in the human genetic samples. The Zephyrian research ship orbited Earth while teams on the surface continued their excavations. In her laboratory, Kethra stared at the data on her screens with growing amazement and horror. The human DNA was not natural, at least not entirely. Someone had been changing it for thousands of years, making small adjustments that would help humans survive in different environments. The modifications were so subtle that other species had never noticed them. But when studied carefully, they revealed a pattern that made Kethra's skin crawl. They were preparing their own bodies for war, she whispered to her assistant. Look at these genetic markers. Enhanced muscle density for higher gravity worlds. Modified lungs for thin atmospheres. Improved radiation resistance, even changes to their brain chemistry to handle extreme stress. Her assistant, a young researcher, named Poland, leaned over the data. But why would they do this to themselves? The humans were known for being adaptable, but this goes beyond adaptation. This is transformation. Kethra pulled up more files from the archaeological team's discoveries. Colonel Ryan Blake had been in charge of something called species defense analysis. His archives contained detailed studies of every known alien race in the galaxy. But these were not peaceful research projects. They were military assessments. Blake had cataloged the strengths and weaknesses of every species. He knew exactly how to fight them if necessary. More disturbing, he knew exactly how to protect them from threats they could not handle themselves. The humans had spent centuries learning everything about their alien neighbors, not to conquer them, but to become their ultimate guardians. The Altarians relied too heavily on their technology. Blake had written about one species. Their physical bodies are weak. If their machines fail, they will need heavy protection. Recommend genetic modifications to our forces assigned to Altarian space. Enhanced strength and endurance required. The files went on and on. For every species, Blake had developed protection protocols. For every world, he had planned defense strategies. The humans had been preparing to defend not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. Kethra moved to another set of data from Dr. Amy Walsh, a human marine biologist. Walsh had explored the deepest parts of Earth's oceans, places where no other species had ever ventured. What she found there challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about human civilization. The ocean floors were not empty. Massive structures lay hidden in the deepest trenches, built with technology that seemed impossible for the time period. These were not research stations or mining platforms. They were weapons of incredible size and power, designed to protect not just Earth, but any world they were deployed to. Test firing of Deep Strike Platform 7 successful, Walsh had recorded. Energy output exceeds all expectations. Theoretical range now extends to 12 star systems. The network is coming online ahead of schedule. When the Dark Ones return, they will find us ready. Kethra felt sick as she read more of Walsh's logs. The human oceans had been turned into a massive weapons array. But the technology was like nothing any known species had ever developed. It was as if the humans had learned to build these weapons from somewhere else. Someone else. She cross-referenced the ocean weapon data with the archaeological findings from the surface bases. The timeline was consistent. Humans had been building these defenses for thousands of years, long before they had made contact with other galactic civilizations. They had been preparing for something that was coming long before anyone else knew to be afraid. The most chilling discovery came when Kethra analyzed genetic samples from different human colonies throughout the galaxy. The modifications were not random. Each group of humans had been specially adapted for the specific threats they might face on their assigned worlds. Humans stationed near Zephyrian space had enhanced immune systems designed to resist Zephyrian biological weapons. Humans near the warrior world of Krex had increased bone density and muscle mass. Humans in the outer rim had radiation resistance that would let them survive in the harsh environment between galaxies. They were not exploring, Kethra realized. They were deploying. Every human colony, every trade mission, every cultural exchange was part of a military operation. They were positioning their people to protect every corner of the galaxy. Polian brought her more data from the surface teams. They had found manufacturing records from human industrial facilities. The numbers were staggering. For every ship the humans had admitted to building, they had secretly constructed 10 more. For every weapon they had shared with other species, they had built 100 more powerful versions. But the most shocking discovery was what the humans had been building in secret. The manufacturing logs spoke of world engines and star fortresses. They described weapons that could move entire planets and defenses that could protect whole solar systems. The scale of preparation was beyond anything any species had imagined possible. "Look at this," Poland said, highlighting a section of manufacturing data. They were not just building weapons. They were building entire fleets of ships designed to specifications we do not recognize. Ships built to fight something that does not match any known species in our databases. Kethra studied the ship designs. They were unlike anything in the galactic archives. These vessels were built for long-range combat against enemies with technology far beyond current galactic standards. The humans had been preparing to fight, something that had not yet arrived. She pulled up more of Colonel Blake's military analyses. Hidden in the classified sections were references to something called the First Contact. But this was not the first contact that appeared in galactic history books. This was something else entirely. First Contact protocols remain classified at the highest levels, Blake had written. Information about the Dark Fleet is to be shared only with those directly involved in Project Eternal Vigil. The galaxy is not ready to know what comes from beyond the rim, but we will be ready for them. The Dark Fleet. Kethra had never heard of such a thing. According to galactic records, humanity's first contact with alien life had been with the peaceful Centauri traders, but Blake's files suggested that humans had encountered something else first. Something that had convinced them to spend the rest of their existence preparing for war. She dug deeper into the biological data. The genetic modifications in human DNA were not just for survival in different environments. They were for survival against specific types of attacks, resistance to certain energy weapons, protection against particular biological agents, defense against mental manipulation techniques. The humans had been modified to fight an enemy that used weapons and tactics unlike anything in the current galaxy. They had prepared their bodies, their minds, and their technology for a war against something that had not yet returned. Dr. Voss called one of her research assistants from across the laboratory. "We are receiving a transmission from the archaeological team on the surface. They say they have found something you need to see immediately." Kethra looked up from her data. "What kind of something?" The assistant's face was pale. "They have found a facility that is still active. The computers are online and running some kind of monitoring program. They say it has been watching the space beyond the galactic rim for the past 500,000 years. Kethra felt her blood turn cold. "Watching for what?" "According to the display screens," the assistant said quietly, "it has been watching for the return of the Dark Fleet. And Dr. Voss, the system thinks it has found something. Captain Ben Torres had been dead for 500,000 years, but his files were very much alive. In the deepest levels of the Earth facility, Veltar's archaeological team had found the intelligence archives. Banks of crystalline storage, devices that had somehow survived the ages, protected by power sources that still functioned after all this time. Ben Torres had been what humans called an intelligence officer. His job had been to gather information about other species and plan for future threats, but as Veltar read through the classified files, he realized that Torres had been planning something far more complex than simple military strategy. The Zephyrians are a curious people, Torres had written in one report. They love to explore and discover new things. This makes them valuable allies, but also vulnerable to enemies who understand their nature. Recommendation: provide them with advanced sensor technology. They will use it to explore, never realizing that we have built backdoors into every system. Veltar's hands shook as he read his own species' assessment. Torres had known exactly how Zephyrians thought, exactly what they would do with human technology, and he had planned for it 500,000 years in advance. The files contained similar analyses for dozens of species. The Altarians had received medical technology that secretly included monitoring systems. The Centauri had been given faster-than-light communication devices that could be remotely controlled. The warrior Krex had received weapons that seemed powerful but contained hidden limitations. Every gift the humans had given to other species came with strings attached, not to control them, but to protect them. When the time came, humanity could activate these hidden systems to coordinate the galaxy's defense. "We are not conquerors," Torres had written in his personal diary. "We are shepherds. The galaxy is full of sheep, and we have seen the wolves coming. Our job is not to rule the flock, but to be ready to fight for it when the wolves arrive." Veltar moved deeper into the intelligence archives. Here he found records of something called the Seeding Project. For thousands of years, humans had been secretly visiting worlds throughout the galaxy, not to colonize them, but to leave behind what they called insurance policies. Dr. Kate Phillips had led the agricultural division of this project. Her files described how human scientists had introduced Earth-based organisms to thousands of worlds. These plants and microorganisms seemed harmless, even beneficial to local ecosystems, but they served a hidden purpose. Each organism is designed to slowly modify its new environment, Phillips had written. Over time, these worlds will become more suitable for human biology. If humanity ever needs to evacuate large populations, we will have worlds ready to receive them. More importantly, if any world is attacked by the Dark Fleet, our organisms will help restore life after the battle. The scope of the Seeding Project was staggering. Humans had touched nearly every inhabited world in the galaxy, leaving behind biological agents that would activate only when needed. They had turned the entire galaxy into a potential refuge and fortress. But the most ambitious part of the plan was revealed in the files of Admiral Tony Rodriguez. Rodriguez had commanded humanity's deep space exploration fleet. His mission had officially been to map new star systems and establish trade routes. In reality, he had been building a network of hidden military bases. Construction of deep space. Station 47 is complete, Rodriguez had recorded. The station is now in position beyond the Andromeda Nebula, outside the detection range of any known species. Automated systems are online and ready to begin manufacturing the defensive fleet. When activated, this station alone can produce enough warships to defend 3-star systems. Rodriguez had built dozens of these hidden stations. They were positioned throughout empty space, disguised as asteroids or hidden inside nebulae. Each station was a fully automated military factory, ready to begin producing weapons and ships at a moment's notice. The stations were connected by a communication network that used quantum entanglement technology. This meant they could coordinate instantly across any distance, without any signal that enemies could detect or intercept. Humanity had built a shadow military that spanned the entire galaxy. Veltar discovered that every human colony ship had carried more than just colonists. Hidden in their cargo holds were the components for these automated factories. When humans settled a new world, they were not just building homes for themselves. They were building military infrastructure that other species never suspected. The human trade networks had been cover for an even more ambitious project. Human merchants had visited every major space station and planetary hub in the galaxy. While they conducted business, they had secretly installed monitoring devices and communication relays. Phase 3 of the network implementation is complete, wrote Torres in a status report. We now have real-time intelligence from every major population center in the galaxy. When the Dark Fleet arrives, we will know about it before any government does, and we will be able to coordinate the defense of every world simultaneously. The humans had been playing a game that spanned centuries. While other species focused on their immediate needs and short-term goals, humanity had been thinking in terms of geological time. Every action they took was part of a plan that would not be completed for thousands of years. Even their apparent extinction had been planned. Veltar found files describing the Great Sleep, a coordinated withdrawal from galactic affairs. Humans had not died out. They had simply gone into hiding, waiting for the threat they knew was coming. The galaxy believes we are gone, wrote Dr. Kate Phillips in her final log entry. This is as it should be. Our enemies will not look for weapons they believe are destroyed. Our friends will not rely on help they think no longer exists. When the time comes, our return will be complete surprise to everyone. The sleep facilities were hidden throughout the galaxy. Millions of humans lay in hibernation pods, their bodies kept alive by technology that could run for millennia. Each facility was equipped with sensors that would wake the sleepers when specific conditions were met. The awakening protocols are tied to deep space monitoring stations, explained Admiral Rodriguez in his final briefing. If the sensors detect the energy signatures of Dark Fleet ships, every human facility in the galaxy will receive the activation signal simultaneously. Our people will wake up exactly where they are needed most. Veltar realized that humanity had sacrificed their visible existence to become invisible guardians. They had given up their place in galactic society to become its secret protectors. While other species built monuments to themselves, humans had built a civilization designed to save everyone else. The intelligence files contained one final revelation that made Veltar's blood run cold. The human preparations were not theoretical. They were based on direct experience. Humanity had fought the Dark Fleet before. The first invasion was stopped only because they underestimated us, Torres had written in his most classified report. They thought Earth was just another primitive world. By the time they realized we were more dangerous than we appeared, we had already destroyed their advanced scouts. But they learned from that encounter, just as we did. When they return, they will come in force. The Dark Fleet had attacked Earth long before humanity had made contact with other galactic civilizations. That first battle had convinced the humans that the threat would return eventually. Everything they had done since then had been preparation for a second invasion. We could have warned the galaxy, Torres continued. We could have told them what was coming, but they would not have believed us. They would have thought we were trying to frighten them into submission. So we chose a different path. We became their guardian angels, protecting them from a threat they do not know exists. Veltar stood in the silent intelligence center, surrounded by the evidence of humanity's ultimate sacrifice. They had given up everything to protect a galaxy that did not even know it needed protection. And somewhere out there, the Dark Fleet was finally returning. The accident happened when Veltar's team tried to move one of the ancient data cores. Dr. Polan was carefully disconnecting the power coupling when his tool slipped. Sparks flew from the damaged connection, and alarms began blaring throughout. "The facility! What did you do?" Veltar shouted over the noise. "I don't know," Poland replied, frantically checking his instruments. "The power surge seems to have activated something. The entire base is coming online." Throughout the underground complex, lights that had been dark for 500,000 years began to glow. Computer screens flickered to life, displaying symbols that scrolled too fast to read. But most disturbing of all was the deep humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Sir," called one of the archaeological assistants from the communications center, "I'm reading massive energy outputs from across the galaxy. It's like someone just turned on 1,000,000 power plants simultaneously." Veltar felt his stomach drop. They had found references to something called the Beacon Network in the human files. If they had accidentally activated it, there was no telling what might happen. The main display screen in the command center suddenly blazed with light. Images began appearing, live feeds from locations across the galaxy. Veltar recognized some of them. That was the Altarian homeworld. There was the Centauri trade hub. And there, impossibly, was Zephyrian Prime itself. "How are we seeing this?" whispered one of his team members. "These locations are hundreds of light years away." The answer came when they enhanced one of the images. Hidden among the familiar buildings and landmarks were structures they had never seen before. Human structures, emerging from underground bunkers or unfolding from disguised installations. The entire galaxy was coming alive with hidden human technology. But that was not the most shocking revelation. In each image, Veltar could see movement, figures emerging from the hidden facilities, figures that looked unmistakably human. "Impossible," he breathed. "They went extinct 500,000 years ago." The figures on the screens moved with purpose and coordination. They were clearly awake and aware, not confused or disoriented as someone might be after waking from a long sleep. These humans knew exactly what they were doing. Admiral Tony Rodriguez's flagship had been a wreck for 500,000 years, buried in the ice of Earth's polar region. But now the archaeological sensors were detecting massive energy readings from that location. Veltar sent a team to investigate while he continued monitoring the global awakening. What they found at the crash site defied explanation. The ship was not a wreck anymore. It was rebuilding itself. Automated systems were repairing the hull, restoring the engines, and bringing all systems back online. Within hours, the flagship of a dead civilization was ready to fly again. The most disturbing discovery came when they accessed the ship's medical bay. Dr. Chris Murphy's bioengineering logs were still in the computer system, and they revealed the true nature of humanity's preparations. Genetic modification phase. 7 is complete, Murphy had written. Test subjects show full adaptation to hostile environments. Radiation resistance increased by 400%. Oxygen requirements reduced by 60%. Muscle density improved for high gravity. Operations. The sleepers will be ready for any environment they wake up in. The humans had not just hidden themselves away. They had improved themselves. The people who were waking up now were not the same species that had gone to sleep 500,000 years ago. They were better, stronger, more capable of surviving in the harsh realities of galactic warfare. Veltar's team monitored the awakening process from the command center. All across the galaxy, human facilities were coming online in perfect coordination. There was no confusion, no chaos. Everything was happening according to a plan that had been set in motion 500,000 years ago. "Sir," reported the communications officer, I'm detecting organized movement from human facilities in 12 star systems. They're not just waking up, they're mobilizing. The displays showed human ships launching from hidden bases. These were not the ships that had appeared in historical records. They were sleek, advanced vessels that incorporated technology far beyond what any current galactic civilization possessed. Humanity had continued developing their capabilities even while they slept. More shocking was the discovery that humans were not alone in their facilities. The awakening process was also bringing online artificial intelligences that had been dormant for millennia. These AI systems began coordinating with their human partners, sharing information and planning operations with efficiency that seemed almost supernatural. "The network is fully operational," announced one of the AIs through the facility's speakers. Its voice was calm and pleasant, but somehow deeply unsettling. "All sleeper facilities have reported successful awakening. Phase 1 objectives are proceeding as planned." Veltar tried to communicate with the AI. "What are Phase 1 objectives? What are you planning to do?" The AI paused for a moment, as if considering whether to answer. "Archaeological Team Leader Veltar Nukes, your species is classified as friendly non-combatant under Protocol 7. You are in no danger from our operations. We recommend you continue your research activities while remaining in this facility for your own safety." "Safety from what?" Veltar demanded. "Long-range sensors have detected the return of the Dark Fleet. Estimated arrival time, 72 standard hours. All defensive measures are being activated. The galaxy will be protected." The archaeological team watched in amazement as the displays showed the true scope of human preparation. Ships were emerging from hidden bases throughout empty space. Platforms were rising from the ocean floors of dozens of worlds. Communication networks were linking every human facility into a single coordinated defense grid. But the most impressive sight was the awakening of the humans themselves. Through the surveillance feeds, Veltar could see them emerging from their hibernation pods. They moved with purpose and confidence, immediately taking their positions and beginning their assigned tasks. These were not people confused by waking up in a strange time. They were soldiers and scientists and engineers who had been waiting their entire lives for this moment. Their training had been completed before they went to sleep. Their missions had been assigned centuries in advance. "Look at this," called Dr. Kethra from her biological monitoring station. "The humans emerging from hibernation are not aging normally. Their cellular structure has been modified to remain stable during extended dormancy. They're waking up with the same physical capabilities they had when they went to sleep. The genetic modifications went beyond simple preservation. As the humans activated their equipment and began their operations, it became clear that they possessed capabilities no baseline human had ever had. Enhanced strength, improved reflexes, extended sensory range. They had become something more than human during their long sleep. Phase 2, activation in progress, announced the AI. Deep space monitoring stations report confirmed detection of Dark Fleet Vanguard elements. Galaxy-wide defensive preparations are now at maximum priority. Through the communication network, Veltar could hear human voices coordinating across impossible distances. Teams that had been separated for 500,000 years were working together as if they had never been apart. The hibernation process had somehow allowed them to share information and training even while they slept. "General Alex Thompson to all sector commanders," came a voice through the speakers. "The enemy has returned as predicted. All units will implement Contingency Plan Omega. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. The galaxy is counting on us, even if they don't know it yet." Veltar realized that humanity had not just survived their apparent extinction. They had used it as camouflage for the greatest military preparation in galactic history. While other species had continued their normal lives, millions of enhanced humans had been waiting in the darkness, ready to emerge when their ancient enemy finally returned. The sleepers were fully awake now, and they were ready for war. The first sign that something was wrong came from the Altarian home world. Their planetary defense grid, built with human technology gifts from centuries ago, suddenly began displaying new operational modes that had never existed before. Shield. Generators that had protected their cities for generations were now showing weapon configurations that no Altarian had ever seen. Engineer Sam Parker's maintenance logs, discovered in the Earth archives, revealed the truth. Every piece of defensive technology that humanity had shared with other species contained hidden capabilities. The medical scanners could be reconfigured as biological weapon detectors. The communication arrays could become jamming devices. The power generators could overload to create devastating electromagnetic pulses. Standard procedure for all technology transfers, Parker had written. Install primary functions as requested by recipient species. Install secondary functions as required by Protocol 7. Ensure all secondary functions remain dormant until activation signal is received from Central Command. Across the galaxy, the gifts that humanity had given to other civilizations were revealing their true nature. The Centauri discovered that their faster-than-light communication system could also control the navigation systems of any ship using compatible technology. The Krex found that their powerful weapons had built-in limitations that could be removed or reimposed remotely. On Zephyrian Prime, Veltar's own people were discovering that their advanced sensor arrays could do much more than simple detection. Hidden subroutines were activating, turning peaceful research equipment into sophisticated spy networks and defensive coordination systems. "This is impossible," transmitted Dr. Kethra from her research ship. "Our entire communication network is being controlled by external signals, but the control algorithms are written in code we've never seen before." The answer came from Sam Parker's technical documentation. Human engineers had been secretly installing backdoors in alien technology for thousands of years. Every major infrastructure project in the galaxy contained hidden human programming, waiting for the right activation signal. "The beauty of the system," Parker had written, "is that the recipient species actually benefits from the technology in its primary mode. The Altarians really do get better shields. The Centauri really do get faster communication. We're not cheating them. We're just making sure we can help them when they need it most." But the scope of human infiltration went far beyond simple backdoors. As the awakening process continued, it became clear that humanity had secretly built parallel networks throughout galactic civilization. Every major space station had hidden human facilities. Every important trade route had concealed monitoring posts. Every planetary defense system had human overrides. The revelation was terrifying in its implications. For centuries, every species in the galaxy had believed they were independent. In reality, they had all been connected to a human command network that could take control of their most vital systems at any moment. Central infrastructure control to all sector networks came a transmission that reached every major world simultaneously. Activating Protocol 7. All defensive systems are now under unified command. All participating species will be protected. Compliance is not optional. The participating species turned out to be everyone. There was no major civilization in the galaxy that had not received human technological assistance at some point. And all of that assistance had come with strings attached. On the Krex warrior world, the proud military leaders discovered that their most powerful battleships could be disabled by remote command. Their weapons could be turned off, their shields could be lowered, and their engines could be shut down by signals from human control centers they had never known existed. But the most shocking discovery was that these control systems were not designed for conquest. They were designed for protection. As the human command network activated, it began coordinating defensive measures on a galactic scale. Shield generators on Altarian worlds were being synchronized to create overlapping defensive fields. Centauri communication arrays were being linked to provide real-time intelligence sharing. Krex weapons were being integrated into firing patterns that could provide mutual support across multiple star systems. "This is General Alex Thompson speaking to all galactic defense networks," came a voice that reached every inhabited world simultaneously. "You are now under the protection of the Human Emergency Defense Protocol. Your governments have not been consulted because there is no time for debate. An existential threat approaches, and we will defend you whether you want our help or not." The human control systems revealed capabilities that no one had suspected. Power plants on dozens of worlds were suddenly operating at efficiency levels. That should have been impossible. Manufacturing facilities were producing equipment using techniques that surpassed anything in current galactic knowledge. Transportation networks were moving supplies and personnel with coordination that seemed almost supernatural. Sam Parker's logs revealed how this was possible. "The real advantage of our technology gifts," he had written, "is not what they can do in normal operation. It's what they can do when properly coordinated. A single human-designed power plant is useful. 1,000 power plants operating as a synchronized network can reshape a star system." As human control systems activated across the galaxy, they began revealing the true extent of humanity's preparations. Weapon platforms rose from the ocean floors of water worlds. Defense satellites emerged from asteroid belts where they had been disguised as mining operations. Battle stations unfolded from what had appeared to be scientific research facilities. The scale of the hidden arsenal was beyond comprehension. Humanity had not just prepared for war, they had prepared for the largest war in galactic history, with weapons and defenses that spanned entire star systems. "Phase 3, activation confirmed," announced the AI systems that were coordinating the awakening. "All strategic assets are now online. Defensive preparations are proceeding according to timeline. The galaxy is as ready as we can make it." But the most disturbing revelation came when alien governments tried to regain control of their own systems. The human override protocols were absolute. No one could shut down the defensive network. No one could opt out of the protection. Humanity had taken control of galactic civilization to save it from a threat that most species did not even know existed. "You're enslaving us," transmitted the Altarian High Council. "You're taking control of our worlds without our permission." General Thompson's response was broadcast to every inhabited planet. "We are saving you. The Dark Fleet does not ask permission before it destroys worlds. Neither do we ask permission before we protect them. When this is over, you can have your independence back, assuming there's still a galaxy left to be independent in." The human takeover was not violent. No one was hurt, no governments were overthrown, no populations were oppressed. But the message was clear. Humanity had the power to control every aspect of galactic civilization, and they were prepared to use that power to ensure everyone's survival. Engineer Sam Parker's final log entry revealed the true genius of the human plan. The other species think of independence as freedom from outside control. But real independence is the ability to survive existential threats. We are giving them true independence by ensuring they will still exist to exercise it. As the last of the hidden systems came online, the galaxy found itself transformed into a single, unified defense network. Every ship, every weapon, every shield generator was now part of humanity's protective grid. The species that had thought themselves extinct had revealed themselves as the secret guardians of everyone else. And according to their sensors, they had activated their defenses just in time. The Dark Fleet was approaching. General Alex Thompson stepped out of his hibernation pod after 500,000 years of sleep. His body felt strong and ready, exactly as it had been when he first entered the long slumber. The genetic modifications had worked perfectly. He was still the same man who had planned humanity's great sacrifice, but his mind now held 500,000 years of shared dreams and coordinated planning. Around him, other humans were awakening in similar facilities across the galaxy. Dr. Nina Brooks emerged from her pod in a hidden laboratory beneath the Centauri capital. Captain Rob Miller opened his eyes in a command bunker on the edge of Krex space. All of them connected by quantum communication links that had been maintained throughout their long sleep. "Status report," Thompson said to the AI that had been watching over them. "All awakening procedures completed successfully," the AI replied. "Galaxy-wide defensive network is fully operational. Deep space sensors have confirmed the approach of the Dark Fleet. Estimated arrival time, 48 hours. Thompson nodded. This was the moment they had prepared for. But as he reviewed the situation reports, he realized that something had changed during their long sleep. The galaxy was not the same place they had left behind. "General," called Dr. Brooks over the communication link. "I'm reading some unusual developments. The other species have been asking questions. They want to know why we prepared so extensively. They're demanding answers about what we knew that they didn't. The galactic governments had been surprisingly quick to piece together the truth. Once the human defensive network activated, alien scientists and intelligence analysts had begun connecting the patterns. They realized that humanity's preparations were too extensive and too specific to be based on general paranoia. The humans had known something was coming. "This is Chancellor Velmar of the Altarian Council," came a transmission on the diplomatic frequency. "We demand an explanation. What threat did you foresee that required such elaborate preparations? Why did you not warn us?" Thompson looked at the communication panel. This was the moment he had hoped to avoid. The truth about humanity's first contact with the Dark Fleet was classified at the highest levels. Only a few humans had ever known the complete story. But with the enemy approaching, secrets were becoming meaningless. "Dr. Brooks," he said, "prepare. The historical archives for full disclosure. It's time they knew what we've been protecting them from." The archives contained records that predated official galactic civilization by thousands of years. Captain Rob Miller's exploration logs from humanity's earliest deep space missions revealed encounters that had never appeared in any history book. Personal log, Captain Robert Miller, Deep Space Exploration Vessel Pioneer. The records began. "We have made contact with an unknown intelligence in the void between galaxies. The entity claims to represent something called the Dark Fleet. It says it has been watching our galaxy for millions of years, waiting for civilizations to develop enough to be worth harvesting." The first contact had not been with the peaceful Centauri traders that appeared in galactic history books. It had been with scouts from an empire that spanned multiple galaxies, an intelligence so vast and ancient that it viewed entire civilizations as resources to be consumed. The entity showed us images of what they call harvest worlds, Miller had recorded. Planets stripped of all life, all resources, all energy. Nothing left but empty rock floating in space. They do this to every galaxy they encounter, and they have been doing it for longer than our species has existed. The Dark Fleet did not conquer worlds, they consumed them. Every living thing, every useful material, every source of energy was absorbed into their vast collective intelligence. When they finished with a galaxy, nothing remained but dead stars and empty space. The entity offered us a choice, Miller continued. Submit willingly and be absorbed into their collective consciousness, or resist and be harvested along with everyone else. They gave us 1,000 years to decide. That had been humanity's true first contact. Not a peaceful meeting with curious aliens, but a warning of coming extinction. And unlike the other species that would later populate the galaxy, humans had believed the threat was real. Dr. Grace Clark's xenobiology research, conducted in secret laboratories hidden from galactic science networks, had analyzed the biological samples the Dark Fleet had left behind. Her findings were terrifying. The entities are not truly alive in any sense we understand, Clark had written. They are post-biological intelligences that have consumed and integrated the consciousness of countless species. Every time they harvest a civilization, they become more powerful and more intelligent. They have been growing for millions of years. The Dark Fleet was not just an invasion force. It was a galaxy-consuming entity that had already absorbed thousands of civilizations. Each conquest made it stronger, smarter, and more capable. By the time they reached humanity's galaxy, they would be more powerful than anything that had ever existed. General Thompson transmitted Dr. Brooks from her facility. I'm broadcasting the first contact records to all galactic governments. They need to understand what's coming. The reaction was immediate and predictable. Panic spread through the galactic communication networks as species realized the true nature of the approaching threat. This was not an invasion that could be negotiated with or surrendered to. This was extinction. You knew about this for 500,000 years, transmitted the Krex High Command. You could have warned us. We could have prepared together. Thompson opened a galaxy-wide communication channel. We tried to warn you, he said. The early human diplomatic missions included warnings about external threats. You dismissed them as paranoid fantasies. You said we were trying to frighten you into accepting human leadership. The historical record supported his claim. Human ambassadors had indeed tried to share their knowledge about the Dark Fleet. But the other species had rejected these warnings as human attempts to gain political power through fear. We offered to help you build defenses, Thompson continued. You said you didn't need protection from imaginary enemies, so we decided to protect you without your knowledge. We sacrificed our visible civilization to become your invisible guardians, Captain. Miller's logs revealed the full scope of humanity's sacrifice. We could have fought the Dark Fleet when they first arrived, he had written. Our technology was already advancing beyond what the other species possessed. We might have won, but victory would have cost billions of lives and left the galaxy in ruins. Instead, humanity had chosen a different path. They had allowed the Dark Fleet's advanced scouts to believe they had successfully destroyed Earth. They had hidden their true capabilities and pretended to be extinct while they prepared for the real invasion. The scouts reported back that humanity was eliminated, Dr. Clark had noted. This gave us the time we needed. The Dark Fleet believes our galaxy contains only primitive civilizations that will be easy to harvest. They have no idea what's waiting for them. The deception had been perfect. For 500,000 years, the Dark Fleet had believed that the most dangerous species in the galaxy was gone. They had planned their invasion based on the assumption that they would face only the peaceful, cooperative civilizations that remained. "General," reported Captain Miller from his command post, "long-range sensors are detecting the main Dark Fleet formation. Number of ships. The computers can't process the count. It's larger than our worst projections." Thompson felt a cold certainty settle in his chest. The enemy was even more powerful than they had feared, but humanity had spent 500,000 years preparing for this exact scenario. "All sector commanders," he broadcast, "implement Protocol Omega. Full Galaxy defense activation. Every species, every world, every resource is now part of our defensive network. The Dark Fleet is about to discover that their easy harvest has become the fight of their existence." The awakened humans took their positions throughout the galaxy. Dr. Brooks began coordinating the Biological Warfare Division. Captain Miller started bringing the hidden fleet out of deep space storage, and Thompson prepared to command the largest defensive operation in galactic history. The Dark Fleet was approaching, confident in their power and expecting easy victory. They were about to discover that humanity had turned the entire galaxy into a weapon pointed directly at them. The first images from the deep space monitoring stations were beyond comprehension. Dr. Grace Clark stared at her screens in the xenobiology lab, watching as the sensors tracked objects emerging from the void between galaxies. These were not ships in any recognizable sense. They were structures so massive that they defied understanding. The largest vessel measures approximately 12,000 kilometers in length, reported the monitoring AI. Its mass is equivalent to a small moon. Energy output readings are off our measurement scales. And General Thompson, there are millions of them. Thompson stood in the Central Command facility, watching the tactical displays update with new contacts every second. The Dark Fleet was not arriving as a conventional invasion force. They were arriving as a moving civilization, a collection of intelligence and technology that had consumed entire galaxies to fuel its expansion. "Dr. Clark," he said into his communicator, "I need your assessment. Are these the same entities that Captain Miller encountered 500,000 years ago?" Clark's voice came back tight with fear. "No, sir. These are much worse. The biological signatures I'm detecting suggest they have absorbed dozens of additional species since their last contact with humanity. They've grown exponentially more powerful." The Dark Fleet had not been idle during humanity's long preparation. While humans slept and planned, the entities had been harvesting other galaxies. Each conquest had added new capabilities, new knowledge, and new weapons to their collective intelligence. Captain Rob Miller, now commanding the Deep Space Sensor Network, transmitted additional disturbing information. "General, the fleet composition suggests they've encountered species with technology far beyond what existed in our galaxy 500,000 years ago. I'm reading weapon signatures that don't match anything in our databases." The implications were terrifying. Humanity had spent centuries preparing to fight the Dark Fleet as they had existed during first contact, but the enemy approaching now was enhanced by the absorption of countless advanced civilizations. They had become something far deadlier than the humans had anticipated. "Long-range communication intercept successful," reported the Intelligence Division. "We're receiving transmissions from within the Dark Fleet. Translating now." The translations that appeared on the screens were unlike anything in galactic experience. These were not the communications of a military force or even a unified species. They were the conversations of a collective consciousness that had absorbed so many different forms of life that it had become something entirely new. "Harvest parameters confirmed," read one transmission. Galaxy designation 7438 shows optimal resource density. Estimated consumption time, 200 standard rotations. Post-harvest, mass increase, 15.7%. New consciousness integration capacity, 847 billion individual units. Dr. Clark felt sick as she read the reports. They're not talking about conquest, she said. They're talking about consumption. Every living thing in our galaxy is classified as food. The Dark Fleet's communications revealed the true scope of their operations. They had consumed 7,537 galaxies before arriving at humanity's home. Each galaxy had provided them with new biological forms, new technologies, and new consciousness patterns to integrate into their collective intelligence. Resistance analysis. Previous harvest operations encountered minimal opposition. Local. Species typically surrender within 50 rotations of initial contact. Advanced civilizations occasionally provide enhanced nutritional value through technological absorption. Thompson realized that the Dark Fleet had never encountered serious resistance. Every galaxy they had harvested had submitted relatively quickly, allowing the entities to consume everything efficiently. They had no experience fighting a coordinated galactic defense. But the next set of intercepted communications was even more disturbing. Anomaly detected in target galaxy. Records indicate previous scout elimination occurred in this location. Recommend enhanced caution during harvest operations. They remember their first contact with humanity, Miller reported. They know their scouts were destroyed here, but they don't realize we're still alive. The Dark Fleet believed they were approaching a galaxy where some unknown force had destroyed their advanced scouts 500,000 years ago. They were prepared for resistance, but they thought they were facing whatever had eliminated humanity, not humanity itself. Dr. Clark accessed the deeper biological analysis data from the approaching fleet. What she found there made her call Thompson immediately. General, you need to see this. The Dark Fleet isn't just a collection of absorbed species. They've become something that transcends individual biology entirely. The entities had evolved beyond physical form. They existed as patterns of information and energy that could inhabit any suitable technological matrix. When they consumed a species, they were not just taking their resources. They were absorbing their consciousness, patterns, and adding them to a collective intelligence that spanned multiple galaxies. Every species they've ever encountered is still alive inside them, Clark explained. But not as individuals. As part of a unified consciousness that has been growing for millions of years. They're not just our enemies. They're the ultimate fate of every intelligent species they've encountered. The tactical implications were staggering. The Dark Fleet had access to the accumulated knowledge and capabilities of thousands of different civilizations. They knew every form of warfare, every defensive strategy, every technological innovation that had ever been developed. Enhanced. Scanning reveals additional anomaly, reported the monitoring stations. Dark Fleet vessels are continuously modifying their configurations. They appear to be adapting their technology in real time based on sensor data from our galaxy. The enemy was not just powerful, they were adaptive. As they approached the galaxy, they were analyzing human defensive preparations and modifying their capabilities to counter every strategy they detected. General, transmitted Dr. Brooks from her biological warfare facility. I'm reading something in the Dark Fleet's biosignatures that doesn't make sense. There are patterns here that match species I've never seen before, species that shouldn't exist yet. Thompson felt a chill of understanding. They're not just adapting to fight us. They're adapting by consuming species from other galaxies in real time. They're growing stronger as they approach. The Dark Fleet was so massive that it contained entire civilizations within its structure. As it traveled between galaxies, it continued to expand by absorbing any life forms it encountered along the way. By the time it reached humanity's galaxy, it would be even more powerful than it was now. New intercept, reported the Communications Division. Message priority maximum. General, they're talking about something called the final integration. The translation appeared on screens throughout the human command network. Approaching galaxy shows unusual characteristics. High probability of significant consciousness. Diversity. Recommend implementation of final integration protocol upon harvest completion. This galaxy may provide sufficient mass to achieve transcendence threshold. Dr. Clark's voice was barely a whisper. They think our galaxy will give them enough power to transcend their current form entirely. We're not just facing an invasion. We're facing the birth of something that could consume the entire universe. The Dark Fleet's ultimate goal was not conquest or even consumption. It was transcendence to a form of existence that could reshape reality itself, and they believed that absorbing humanity's galaxy would provide the final energy they needed to achieve that transformation. All sector. Commanders, Thompson broadcast, update threat assessment to maximum level. We are not fighting to save our galaxy. We are fighting to prevent the creation of a godlike entity that could destroy all existence. The true scale of the threat was now clear. If the Dark Fleet succeeded in consuming their galaxy, it would become powerful enough to remake the universe, according to its will. Every star, every planet, every form of life would become part of its collective consciousness. General, called Captain Miller, the fleet is beginning to decelerate. They'll reach the outer rim in 18 hours. All human defensive systems are ready for activation. Thompson looked at the displays showing the approaching darkness. Humanity had prepared for 500,000 years, but their enemy had been preparing for millions. The greatest battle in the history of existence was about to begin. Activate all defensive protocols, he ordered. Wake every sleeping human. Bring every weapon online. The Dark Fleet is about to discover that their final harvest will be their last. Fleet Admiral Steve Davis opened his eyes for the first time in 500,000 years. Around him, the command deck of the battleship Defiance came to life as systems that had waited in darkness began their final awakening. His crew was emerging from their hibernation pods, each taking their positions with the smooth efficiency of people who had trained for this moment their entire lives. "Admiral," reported Commander Lucy Harris from the tactical station, "all fleets are reporting ready status. The galaxy is armed and prepared for battle." Davis looked at the main display screen where the Dark Fleet appeared as an approaching wall of darkness that blocked out the stars. The enemy vessels were so numerous that they formed a shadow across space itself. But scattered throughout the galaxy, humanity's hidden arsenals were revealing themselves for the first time. "Dr. Beth Morgan to all medical stations," came a voice over the communication network. "Biological warfare protocols are active. All species have been inoculated with protective agents. We are ready to deploy countermeasures against Dark Fleet absorption techniques." The final battle was beginning, and humanity was implementing plans that had been 500,000 years in the making. Every gift they had given to other species was now revealing its true purpose. Every hidden facility was coming online. Every sleeping human was taking their position in the greatest military operation in galactic history. Colonel Paul Kim reporting from Deep Space Defense Network, transmitted another voice. "All automated weapon platforms are operational. We have successfully surrounded the Dark Fleet with a sphere of defensive systems spanning 3,000 light years. The scope of humanity's preparations was finally becoming clear. They had not just prepared to defend individual worlds. They had turned the entire galaxy into a single massive weapon, with Earth's solar system serving as the central command. Center Admiral Davis opened a communication channel to the Dark Fleet. It was time to announce humanity's return to a galaxy that had thought them extinct. "This is Fleet Admiral Steve Davis of the Human Defense Force," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Dark Fleet entities, you are entering protected space. This galaxy is under our guardianship. Turn back now, or face the consequences of your actions." The response came immediately, in a voice that seemed to contain the echoes of countless absorbed civilizations. Human consciousness detected. Previous records indicated species elimination in this location. Explain survival mechanism. "We did not survive," Davis replied. "We evolved. You taught us what was coming, and we spent 500,000 years becoming something capable of stopping you." Throughout the galaxy, human facilities were powering up weapons that defied the physics understood by current galactic civilizations. The deep space manufacturing stations were producing ships at an impossible rate. The ocean floor weapon platforms were charging energy systems that could crack planets. The hidden asteroid bases were revealing massive artillery that could fire across interstellar distances. "First wave engagement beginning," reported Captain Miller from his flagship position. "Dark Fleet advanced scouts are entering the outer, defensive perimeter." The initial contact was unlike anything in military history. Human weapons fired not just at Dark Fleet ships, but at the quantum fields that held their collective consciousness together. Dr. Morgan's biological warfare systems released agents designed to disrupt the absorption process that the Dark Fleet used to consume their victims. "Direct hit on lead Dark Fleet vessel," reported Commander Harris. "But the damage is being repaired instantly. They're adapting to our weapons in real time." This was what humanity had feared. The Dark Fleet had absorbed so many different technologies that they could counter almost any attack. But the humans had prepared for this possibility as well. "Phase 2 implementation," ordered Admiral Davis. "Activate the Integrated Species Defense Network." Across the galaxy, the true genius of humanity's plan became apparent. The Altarian shield generators were not just protecting their worlds. They were creating a galaxy-spanning defensive grid that channeled Dark Fleet attacks away from inhabited systems. The Centauri communication arrays were not just coordinating defenses. They were generating interference patterns that disrupted Dark Fleet consciousness networks. The Krex warrior fleets found that their human-enhanced weapons could now fire coordinated barrages with perfect timing across multiple star systems. The Zephyrian sensor networks were providing targeting data that allowed human gunners to hit Dark Fleet weak points from impossible distances. "The enemy is adapting faster than projected," reported Dr. Morgan. "But they're making a critical error. They're treating each species as a separate threat instead of recognizing the unified nature of our defense." The Dark Fleet had experience fighting individual civilizations, but they had never encountered a galaxy where every species was working as part of a single coordinated strategy. Their adaptive capabilities were being overwhelmed by the sheer complexity of humanity's integrated defense network. "Colonel Kim to Admiral Davis," came an urgent transmission. "Deep space sensors are detecting something new. The Dark Fleet is deploying what appears to be their primary weapon system." The main screen showed massive Dark Fleet vessels opening to reveal structures that had been hidden within their hulls. These were not weapons in any conventional sense. They were devices designed to extract the consciousness patterns of entire civilizations and integrate them into the Dark Fleet's collective intelligence. All species, implement Protocol 0, Davis broadcast. Consciousness protection systems are now active. This was humanity's final gift to the galaxy, hidden within. Every human technological enhancement was a system designed to protect the minds of other species from dark fleet absorption. As the enemy consciousness extraction beams fired, they found their targets protected by barriers they could not penetrate. The absorption beams are being reflected back at the dark fleet, reported Dr. Morgan with amazement. Their own weapons are disrupting their collective consciousness patterns. The battle raged for hours that felt like years. Dark fleet vessels fell to human weapons, but new ships continued to emerge from the depths of space. Human facilities were destroyed by Dark Fleet counterattacks, but backup systems immediately came online to replace them. But slowly, inevitably, the balance began to shift. The Dark Fleet's adaptive capabilities were powerful, but they were designed to counter the technologies of individual species. Against humanity's galaxy-spanning integration of multiple civilizations, they were being overwhelmed. "Admiral," called Commander Harris, "Dark Fleet command vessels are beginning to retreat. Their consciousness extraction systems are failing. They can't process our integrated defense patterns." Davis watched as the enemy began to withdraw. But he knew this was not victory. This was only the first battle of a war that could last for millennia. "Open a channel to all galactic governments," he ordered, and to the Dark Fleet Command. When the connections were established, Davis delivered the message that humanity had waited 500,000 years to give. The Dark Fleet will continue to threaten this galaxy as long as it exists, but they will never succeed in consuming us. We have become something they cannot absorb, cannot adapt to, and cannot defeat. Every species in this galaxy is now part of a collective defense that spans space and time itself. He paused, looking at the retreating Dark Fleet. "To our galactic neighbors, you are safe. You are protected. You are part of something larger than any individual civilization. To the Dark Fleet, you have encountered something you have never faced before. A galaxy that fights as one. Return to the darkness and do not come back." The Dark Fleet continued its retreat, their massive vessels disappearing into the void between galaxies. But the galaxy they left behind was forever changed. Humanity had revealed itself not as conquerors, but as the ultimate guardians. They had sacrificed their visible existence to become invisible protectors, and their success had saved every living thing in the galaxy. Admiral Davis stood on the bridge of his ship, watching as human vessels began to disperse back to their hidden stations. The long watch was not over. It would never be over. But for now, the galaxy was safe. "All stations," he broadcast, "maintain alert status. The Dark Fleet will return someday, and we will be ready for them. This is what we were born for. This is what we became. The galaxy is under our protection, and we will never let it fall." In the depths of space, human facilities returned to their patient vigil. On worlds throughout the galaxy, other species looked up at stars that were still shining because of humanity's sacrifice. And in the darkness between galaxies, the Dark Fleet learned for the first time what it meant to be defeated. Humanity had kept their promise. The galaxy would not fall, not today, not ever.